Hello and welcome. This is episode 5 of podcast Engineer-to-Manager. My name is Oleg Maestrenko. I'm podcaster and advisor to CDTO in Kyiv City Council. In this podcast, we are diving in the essence of engineering management. We explore what engineering management is, what are their challenges and opportunities in this position. For this journey, I invite experienced engineering managers from different parts of the world. Today's guest is Isabel Nyo. Hello, Isabel. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm really good. Thank you. I'm really excited to be in this podcast as well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome, and thanks for accepting the invitation and joining. So you're currently head of engineering at Atlassian.
That's correct.
And you're a senior leader, technologist. You publish lots of things. You also speak at different conferences. You worked at different organizations, from small companies to big companies like eBay and Atlassian. You also help professionals to grow with all the content that you're bringing, and to set up the correct mindset and their strategy for the growth. Wow, I'm excited and looking forward to our conversation. Is everything correct? Would you like to add anything?
So it's correct, and when you put it like that, it's quite a lot. But I have been doing it for almost 15 years, I would say. I graduated about 20 years ago, so I have been doing this for a long time. So it doesn't seem to me like I'm doing too many things at once, because it has been a long time. But when you put it like that, it's really cool to hear like all the things that I've been doing, and it's good to know that people has been appreciating it and seeing it as well.
Yeah, well, it comes step by step, and today we are going to talk about their journey, how to grow in their direction of engineering management, how to excel, how to become better, and whether it worth jumping into this profession in these days, considering all their layoffs are coming from Meta, from Google, and from other. Before we dive into the conversation, dear listeners, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. More videos and conversation are coming later on. So let's talk about your current position, and you're head of engineering at Atlassian, right? And previously you were head of front-end engineering at eBay, so you're moving in this position, you're staying on this level. Tell me about your daily responsibilities, your tasks. What are you up to on a daily basis?
Mm-hmm. That's a very good question, because every day is very different for me as a head of engineering. So let me backtrack a little bit. I started at Atlassian about 5 years ago. And recently, I am a head of engineering looking after 110 people. So I have a large group of engineering team members. And my day consists of lots of meetings, but I also like to put focus deep work time to think about strategy. So this is around like strategic thinking around the products that we have got, or how we can make the services that we own as a head of engineering, my department, own more reliable, more operationally excellent for the services that my group owns. So that's some of the things that I do. And often I will have one-on-one meetings with my direct reports. So I have about 3 senior engineering managers reporting to me, and each of them has about 4 to 6 teams. So I will have one-on-one with them weekly. And usually this is an hour one-on-one. I also work quite closely with my leadership squad, cross-functional leadership squad. So I have product management, design, and program management in my leadership squad. And we would usually look at what are the goals that we have for the quarter, because at Atlassian we do quarterly planning, and what are the things that we need to achieve this quarter, what are the process improvement that we need to do, what are the hiring that we need to do, what are the resourcing that we need to do. So every day varies quite a lot, but I try to, one thing that I've really found works for me because of all this context switching is I try to have some sort of theming for each day. So for example, Monday, I would try to avoid having any meetings. So Monday is the focus day for me to make sure that I can plan the whole week ahead. And Tuesday and Wednesday, I would try to do most of my one-on-one. Then Thursday, I would plan to do a lot more strategic thinking. And then Friday, it will be a wrap up and also following up on different things that come out of different meetings. And there's also
Nice.
interviewing as well that I do. Not so much recently, but previously I used to do like 2 to 3 interviews a week.
So you basically have a day-specific tasks that you distribute over the weekend. It's nice to hear about Monday because lots of people put their status meetings on Monday to kind of to kick off the week, and there you have basically a Monday for yourself, if you can say so.
Yeah,
very different.
Yeah, definitely. And I need this to make sure that I'm not jumping between different tasks and I'm staying focused on what I'm doing.
And you're head of engineering, and there's also, I don't know if it exists in Atlassian, a position called VP of engineering. In some company it exists. Would you be able to comment on the difference between head of engineering and VP of engineering?
That is a very good question because at Atlassian, we don't have a role called VP of engineering. We have head of engineering at different levels. So there is also head of engineering who is at the next level, like the higher level than myself. And there will be another head of engineering that's higher than the head of engineering that is above me. So we are all called head of engineering. But when I think about VP of engineering for big company and the head of engineering role that I have got, there are a few similarity and differences. And I know this because I used to be a CTO for a startup. And when I was a CTO, I was also playing the role of head of VP of engineering as well. So I know the responsibility and expectation. So your question was, how is it similar or different? Is that right?
Right.
So similarity in terms of the team size. So as I mentioned earlier, I have got 110 engineering team members. So in terms of the size of the team, it's the same. So that's one similarity. The other similarity is VP of engineering role is quite focused on the operational aspect of running the engineering organization. And that is the same for my current role as a head of engineering at Atlassian as well. I am the person who is responsible and accountable for all the engineering operation for my department. So things like operational excellence, reliability, hiring, developer productivity, and coaching and mentoring engineer within my group is my responsibility. In terms of differences, I would say my current role doesn't have that much of a technical strategy involvement. Previously, when I was a CTO and I was also playing the role of VP of engineering, there's a lot of technical strategy involvement with the CEO of the company. And I don't have that much here at my current role. And
so you don't code these days, or you are not doing any proof of concept or code reviews? I don't know.
no, not in my current role, no. But funnily enough, when I was a CTO at a startup, I used to do code review as well. Because the startup was quite small, so we were less than 5 people as a development team. So I used to do code review, but in my current role, I don't do it. Yeah,
Got it.
Yeah, it's a lot more operational than hands-on coding, but I do review like things like processes or process improvement on how we look after the quality of our code bases, what are the percentage of bugs that are coming through, how much time we need to spend for maintenance and things like that.
Do you influence or do you work on a selection of a technical stack? I know the JavaScript library that you would like to use to migrate, or the newer backend component, or are you involved in those activities as well as our head of engineering?
So this is a very good question because you mentioned about JavaScript framework. So when I was at eBay as a head of front-end engineering, I had this responsibility to review front-end framework. And back then, React just came out, and there was AngularJS, and there was like Vue and a few others. So as a head of engineering back then, it was my responsibility to do a proof of concept for all these framework, also hands-on coding together with some of my engineer, and also put together like pro and cons of what would be the best choice for us. In my current role, we have most of the standards written down, and we also have architects in this role as well. So I am influencing the decision, definitely, but I am not the approver for this decision, because these are considered more technical decision, and usually the approver would be architect or senior architect or principal engineer. But I definitely contribute to the decision making, and I will ask question like, what is the cost if we were to migrate to React, for example, or what is the rollout process that we need to do? So there's definitely involvement around these, but in terms of like hands-on, is less hands-on.
Dare to ask, or I guess everybody is interested, do you use Jira internally for your tasks and their cooperation in the team, like Jira, Confluence? Do you use your stack and tools?
Yeah, definitely. We use Jira, we use Confluence, we also use Trello, and there are a few new products that we have got as well, like Atlas. We use that as well. Yeah. So the good thing about Atlassian is it's a software company, and we have software team, so we get to use our own products as well.
Oh, nice. What do you like, and what don't you like about your role? So there are always interesting and boring things that we do in our roles on a daily basis, right? What about you? What are your preferences, and what you really say? Well, I just have to do it.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about it for a few days about like what I like or I don't like. And by the way, I really like self-reflection. So I'm always thinking about how I'm going in my current role, whether I still like it, I still enjoy it. And I have to say, I really like my role. And there are a few reasons. Firstly, I like to create things. I like to create stuff. And this is one of the reasons why I became a developer. And now in my role, I'm not coding anymore, but I still create stuff and I still produce stuff. And I work with really smart people who are passionate about creating stuff. So that's definitely a plus for me. And I really enjoy that aspect of my role. And the other thing that I enjoy is because I work for a large company, there's always opportunity to learn from other people. And this is the main difference that I see when I used to work for smaller company. In smaller company, you don't have that much of an opportunity to learn from another person in the same field or like discuss about ideas with another person. Whereas in my current role, I have lots of opportunity to talk about things that I'm interested in that the other person is also interested in as well. So that's definitely a plus. Things that I don't like is that because it's also to do with the size of the company. The company that I currently work for is quite large, and my role is also quite senior as a head of engineering. I am accountable for a lot of things within my department. And what happens is, compared to when I was a startup CTO, I have to be a lot more intentional about the kind of decision that I make. For example, earlier we were talking about choosing a framework for JavaScript. When I was a CTO, I would just come up with an answer in a week after a proof of concept. It's like quite straightforward, right? And if we chose the wrong framework, it's fine. We can go back very quickly. But
Just try it out, revert, and go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. But in a large company, these kind of decisions has lots of impact on people on the ground and the projects that we have got. And also we need to think about whether this is beneficial for hiring as well, like whether this will attract the right kind of talent that we want. So a lot more considerations need to be made. And this is not like I do not like to do this. It's more like it's not is not my natural strength. My natural strength is I like to get things done, and I like to get things done quickly. But when you work for a big company,
I think I see where you're going to with the downsides of, let's say, enterprise, where you have to take into account all their processes, all their people and groups that you influence with your decision, that you have to take into account when you go ahead. And there, I experience the same when I work right now for a city. The city of Kyiv is quite large. We have 5+ million inhabitants, and our work influences all those people, and we have to be really careful when we implement a system, when we make decisions, when we choose a strategy to go ahead, and so on and so forth. So it's managing a city or working in a city is like working in an enterprise. So this is very, very similar. I think we share a very similar path, coming from a developer to a management position, with the time growing and then going to a senior management. I also used to be a head of engineering in my previous position. And does it worse? Does it worse leaving all the developer efforts, creating stuff by your own, and going more to management, where, as you say right now, you don't write code, right? And they're same here. So does it worse?
So if you are asking whether it is worth it, I think it's a very highly personal and subjective answer. And I don't think there's one correct answer. But I tell you what I think, like for me personally. For me personally, I really enjoy the management role, but I do miss coding aspect or creating aspect when I first became a manager. So not many people knew it, but I became a manager about 15 years ago. And then I went back to individual contributor role for 2 years. And I went back to management again. And the reason was because when I first became a manager, I struggle a lot with delegating and letting other people do the work, because I also want to be enjoying the coding and creating aspect. But the way that I managed to resolve it is because I like coaching and mentoring people. I like to see people grow. This is one of the reasons why I became a manager. So you can't do coding and mentoring people quite effectively in the same role. So I still want to be a manager, so I stick around. And to resolve the issue of not feeling like I'm not creating anything, what I have done is I thought about what I could create that will help me in my role and help other people in the same role. And I found that writing about engineering management, sharing knowledge about engineering management, speaking about leadership, women in tech, all these topics that I'm passionate about allows me to still be creative and put things out there that are to be called my own. So it is worth it once you find why you become a manager. And I also find some of the things that you still want to do about coding. And I know a few people who are manager in their day job, but they also have like side hustle, or they still write code and write apps and things like that. Are you one of those? Do you also have like side hustle?
I have one of the side projects, but I actually don't dedicate a lot of time these days. Due to two things. One thing is changing of the company, which I did half a year ago. So when you come to a new company, you will spend obviously a little bit more time, because you have to understand how the company works, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities to get more tighter connection with people. Whereas in the previous, I had already like 5 years of working, so I understood and could dedicate some of my free time a personal time to a side project. And I also got a small kid, which doesn't help with a side project outside of a job. Therefore, I'm trying to code a little bit during my day job, because sometimes their tasks are not clearly defined, and I am doing kind of a POC or digging a little bit deeper to show their concept and their idea behind their thing that we need to do. But I'm not doing production code or production system. It's rather basically, okay, these are the components, this is how they work. I show and help people to understand their issue and the way to resolve it. But there are lots of details and nuances when you come to a real or production system. So I basically try to resolve the core issue and show people how to do it together with them. But then it comes like, okay, there are another 3,000 questions that arise that I didn't took into consideration when I was doing this POC, and then basically guiding and helping people, but not really working on those kind of. I'm trying to act as or like when there is a ball lying, I'm trying to push it and then make sure it rolls down the hill, and then kind of helping it to roll, but not pushing it all the way down. Basically, kind of the first initial kick, and then make sure it works. So it's how I approach. And also in the previous work, I haven't been doing a lot of coding, and I had several interviews with EMs, and basically when it comes to coding, there are, three different types. First one is they say, I don't code at all, which is okay. And second one is say I had a very interesting thought. I'm a master of bottom of a backlog. So basically their team works on a sprint basis or whatever methodology is being used, and there is always a task that nobody wants to work on, and which is not critical, right? To tidy up something, to kind of improve some things which don't influence the team performance and the product or service delivery. And then the manager kind of still works together with a team, but helps team to clean up those dirty tasks. People are kind of pushing back, and which again, they might push back, but they are not that important for product or service delivery. This is a second thing or second approach. And third is basically kind of to be and dedicate your time to news, to kind of doing their small POCs, to read, to listen, to participate in discussions about their technologies that are evolving on the market. Of course, we all hear about ChatGPT, and it's being a buzz on internet. If you tried it, I'm not sure you're participating in the technology. For me, participating would be at least to go and watch the video from Andrei Karpathy, who explained a 2-hour video how it works and how to build it yourself, and then try to repeat it yourself. This is already kind of participating in their technology, but not really coding. This is what I would say the third path, and I'm typically going the third path. So we're not coding with a team, and they're kind of using my free time to be active in the technology space to understand and absorb the information, and also try sometimes with my own hands.
That's really good to do, by the way. I truly believe that as an engineering manager or head of engineering or CTO, you can't lose touch of the technology. Technology is changing so fast. Like you mentioned, ChatGPT, it just came out late last year, right? And everyone is using it, and AI is a big thing. You need to understand the concept so that you can make the right decision, also strategic decision as well, to stay competitive in the market. So it's definitely important for engineering manager to stay close to technology, whether through coding or picking up like bugs and bottom of the backlog is another thing.
Yeah, this is one skill that I would name essential for engineering manager. What are there others? You have a very nice article about 10 essential skills. Let's go through them.
Okay, cool. So if I can remember them, or you can remind me, I put things like analytics, so skills that are adjacent to software development. And as we mentioned, software development is the core fundamental skill. As an engineering manager, we need this skill. But on top of that, what are the other skills that we need are like analytics, design, project management, psychology, because you are working with people. So when you're working with people, you need to be understanding them and knowing how to talk to them, how to motivate them. This is about psychology. Then finance, because when you're an engineering manager, you need to understand the cost and benefit. I'm not sure if I've mentioned project management, but project management is something that I find engineering managers are lacking when they first get into the role. It's very important as well. And there are a few other things like being resourceful, because when you are responsible for a large group of engineers, they are all looking up to you to solve problems. So creative thinking, problem solving, being resourceful, and things like that are essential skills in today's world.
No, yeah, I think there are. I think that was a conversation with Patrick Kua, who said there are several different types of engineering managers. One coming from their engineering side, with their engineering background, coding, developing, and one being more classical project managers, kind of coming without coding background, and they're they both end up with a title engineering manager, but they have different background and they have also different sometimes connection with the team or different respect from the team, because the person coming from the coding get their hands dirty and kind of dive with you as an engineer to solve some particular problem about importing our SSL certificate and coding, whatever comes into play, whereas our project manager will not be able to do it. What is, in your opinion, where is better to come from our classical project manager or from our engineering or coder or DevOps, whatever engineering role it is?
So I would say if a project manager wants to become an engineering manager, they need to spend some time to learn about the basic or fundamental of software engineering. Otherwise, they cannot be effective in their role. They can leverage their project management skill, which is the essential, but they can't just say, I'm going to project manage everyone and I'm going to delegate everything. So that's definitely required. For engineering manager, they have the foundational software engineering skill, but they also need to learn project management and people management. And you asked me which one is better.
Well, better, easier. Let's take several aspects on this
better
discussion.
Or easier? I think it depends on the company. The company that I've worked for, like Atlassian, eBay, mostly software company and SaaS company, I think being and coming from an engineering background is very beneficial.
And for what companies it's better when a person comes from a project management side of things? So
I think for software agency, like when you have a requirement and you have a team of like developer that are on bench to deliver like projects on a needs basis, not like having a product that you maintain and own as a company, but more like project ad hoc basics, like consultancy, project management.
Kind of Accenture, for instance, as if I can mention.
Yeah, smaller one. I'm even thinking about smaller agency.
Okay.
I'm based in Sydney, and in Sydney there are a few like small agency, and they will have their manager, and the role of their manager is mainly to manage resources or the people for different projects, and these people will go and sit on site with the company that or their clients. So in those cases, project management skill is more valuable.
Yeah, makes sense because you're basically focusing on the product and kind of services type of organizations. And what I also experienced and saw is that in services type of organization, there are There is a role called delivery manager. Did you ever came across such a role?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, they
What would be different than with EM project product or delivery? So delivery where it comes into play, because it's also very connected with our engineering team.
Yeah, so in my experience, delivery manager focus on the project delivery, and they don't worry so much about the technical complexity or tech debt or quality. They are focused on the delivery. And what is the difference? I think delivery manager are more similar to scrum masters. Scrum master and agile coaches. Yeah. And people tend to use these label interchangeably. Delivery manager, scrum master, project manager.
Indeed, indeed. I think every company defines for itself their role, and as you already mentioned, their head of engineering might be different in a smaller company and in a bigger, enterprise company. And their list of roles that you have, like VP of engineering that we talked before, right, might not exist in your company, but exists in their much smaller company or bigger company and has a different list of responsibilities that are linked to this role. Okay, and let's talk about the things that you mentioned already. There are mistakes that you made as a EM, if I can say so, that you were not able to delegate. What other typical mistakes that you see of people who are coming from to this role, who are new to the engineering management role?
Yeah, good question. Delegation is definitely one of the most common mistake the engineering manager made. The other mistakes, or the mistake that I personally made when I first became an engineering manager, is I used to dislike processes. Any kind of process, I used to not want to have any at all. And this is because it's also to do with the way that I work. I want to get things done and get things done quickly, right? And I used to see processes as hindering my progress to what I want to do. So when I first became an engineering manager, I had a team and I ran that team without any process at all. There was no process for code review. There was no process to schedule work. There was no sprint planning or anything. And you think about it today, it is very shocking.
Is it? It sounds like a chaos, doesn't it?
It was definitely. And the way that I used to manage it was every Monday I would come into work a little bit early in the morning just to list out all the things that we would need to do. And I send email to all my engineer. This is what we need to do, blah, blah, blah. So instead of like ticket tracking, I use email. And then when they come in a bit later, an hour or two later, we will go for coffee or go for a walk around the block and talk about what we need to do for the week. Then everyone would go back to their desk, do their work. And every Wednesday and Friday, we would just check in about the progress that we are going through email again as well. And my engineers would often come over to my desk, and this was before the remote work. So everyone was in the office, everyone was co-located. They will come over to my desk and say, Isabel, I finished my work. Can you do a code review for me? So I was the one going to their desk doing code review, and there was no standard either. So whatever I say became the standard. And it was chaos because I became the gatekeeper for everything. Imagine if I couldn't come into work for a week. What would
Oh no, that would be a disaster. That would have been a disaster.
Yeah. And that's why I didn't take too many leave during that time. And I became the blogger for everything, and I couldn't scale myself. And that was the big mistake that I made. And the mistake was not having any processes to keep things in order and to allow me to scale. So that's one. The other one that I was thinking of is time management. So I was earlier in our conversation, I was talking to you about how I like to theme my day, right? I want to focus on meeting on this day and things like that. And this happened after lots of trial and error. Before, I used to just let anyone manage my calendar. You want to talk to me, just put things in my calendar, right? And soon enough, my calendar was filled with so many meetings and a lot of context switching, because
Yeah, like half an hour here, half an hour there, and even without or kind of a break to go to the toilets or between their meetings.
yeah. And I was just running from meetings to meetings with no focus time. And even though you are a manager, as an engineering manager, there are still things that you need to do in your role, right? Operational excellence, looking after your team member, thinking about the growth of them, hiring people. So time management is a very crucial thing for engineering manager, and lots of engineering manager get it wrong. I think it's not because they think it's not important, but they are used to having someone else manage their time for them. When you are a developer, you will look at things from a backlog, right? You will pick it up and then walk through, and then it will have like different column saying done in QA or deployment or whatever. So everything is already set up in a way that allows you to move work from one bucket to the other quite easily. And then when you finish, you will pick up another ticket. Whereas in engineering management role, you need to be a lot more intentional. You need to know what are the goals that you want to achieve for the month or for the week, and be intentional about how you spend your time as well, and not just be in meetings and feel like you haven't done anything.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I came across my career is to make sure that everybody in your team has something to do, and or when you discuss with the team about the tasks that you have, you leave for yourself 0 tasks, or you leave for yourself for those tasks that nobody took. So, for instance, there is some to develop a new feature, which is always exciting, but you have to give this task to somebody else, not for yourself. And I think this is one of the challenges for newcomers to this position, is to make sure before you as a manager start doing something, to make sure that everyone is busy and everyone is happy, satisfied about the task that they have, right? So that you are not picking up the task for yourself in front, but kind of giving them away to make sure people have their capacity and have their things to do on the table.
Yeah, definitely. And I also think just having tasks is not enough. You need to provide the context. Like this feature that you were talking about, right? It's the manager responsibility to explain why this feature is important. What are we trying to achieve as a team? What are we trying to achieve as a company? And without that, engineers will feel like they are just doing things after things without understanding what is the impact that they are making. So that's the manager role as well. And now that you mention it, I think that's something that a lot of new engineering manager didn't think too much about, providing context and helping people understand the why.
Yeah, true. So the why is really important. So it's not only you're making sure people are happy with their smaller chunks, but they see their big picture. And they're, I think in one of the conversation, one person made sure that there is interconnection between roles and teams. Kind of, I think in your team, in your position as well as the head of engineering, you talk with other leaders in your organization, and you also make a flow of what's going in other teams to your team to make sure that there is an interconnection between the components that different teams are working that are not part of your team. And this is a additional details of the context where the company goes and how it evolves.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because I see that a lot in big company. Teams tend to work in silo. Like they might have a service that they own, and they only care, well, unless they are given guidance and understanding of the big picture, they only understand the service that they own, and they don't really understand why certain things need to be changed on this service, or why they need to even like improve the reliability, for example, because they don't know what are the downstream services that may be using this service as well. So it's really important to provide this kind of information and help open the eyes of engineer to see the big picture.
Yeah, and additional thing for the context, it depends on the company,
Yeah.
but to bring their status and the like kind of informal updates to the team about their state of the company. I know like financial progress. I'm not saying exact numbers, but I'm saying, okay, well, you see on the board meeting on your level that the company is progressing, that you're in green numbers, that the company is earning, and then bring that down to your team saying like, look guys, we as a company are doing a great job, we are progressing, not to reflect and say like, okay, we earned $57.3 million this quarter, but rather their general tendency and their kind of their information about the health, if you want, of the company, so that they feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
And then they feel in the context like that they are influencing, and the result of their job helps to move forward as a bigger organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's really important. And thanks for calling that out, because earlier in my career, when I was so focused on just coding, I didn't used to care so much about like what's happening, what was happening around me. But then I realized that these are all important, right? You are not just coding, you are working for someone, you are working for a company, and there needs to be some sort of purpose that you can relate to. And this really helps with engagement and motivation. I actually wrote an article a while ago on how to think and act like a CEO for an engineering
Mm-hmm.
manager. So you need to understand what your company goals are, and not all companies are at the stage where they need to worry about the bottom line. So some
Mm-hmm.
startup, they care more about user acquisition or engagement. So you need to understand what that is so that you can make informed decision on priority of the tasks that you have and the priority of the projects that you have.
Do you have to finish your MBA to be or act as a CEO?
I personally don't think so. Yeah, it's more about the mindset and understanding, and also like being curious, most importantly. Yeah, being curious
Mm-hmm.
about what other things are going on around you, and having this kind of critical thinking and not take things on the surface.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, it's a good point, being curious and also, well, sharing back to the team
Mhm.
to bring this context. If we can go back to one point that you mentioned, is basically there previously when you worked at that company that was before COVID times, and I guess you were all in the office, and now it's lots of remote work. By the way, do you work remotely with different teams, like working from home, or how it works for Atlassian?
So Atlassian has got this team anywhere concept.
Uh-huh.
So everyone can work from home. Everyone is allowed to work from home. And for my group, so for my department, I have teams in Poland, Europe, and I also have
Mm-hmm.
some team member in Germany. So we are quite distributed. I have team member in Australia, so I'm based in
Mm-hmm.
Australia, and I'm in Sydney, but I have team member all over Australia: Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide. So yes, we all work from home, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, and there are when this COVID thing started, there I don't know if you saw this or not, but several roles were trying to be able to work for different companies simultaneously, like a DevOps person working for 3-4 companies, and they're by this are trying to earn a little bit more money when you work well for a full-time salary. Would this setup work for engineering manager?
This is very interesting. So, firstly, the first thing that comes to my mind is it even legal? Are you legally allowed to have two full time permanent role? Maybe for contractor role or freelance role, it might be fine, but full time permanent role, are you even legally allowed, maybe based on the country that you are in. But assuming we are making an assumption that it's legally possible, then for an engineering manager, I would say it would be quite tough. Engineering management is not just writing code, right? Like it's also a lot about supporting other, understanding the big picture, understanding the company goals, knowing what needs to happen, one. And if you are working for 2 or 3 or however many company at the same time, it will be a lot of mental, emotional load and context switching. So I wouldn't recommend it, but that said, it still depends on the individual. I would love to know if there are people out there doing this and how how they think about it. Because like earlier, we were talking about me writing on the side and like speaking and doing podcasts, having my full-time job as well. I enjoy it a lot because it allows me to stay motivated and engaged. If there are people out there who are doing 2 engineering management role to keep them engaged and motivated, maybe it is a good thing, provided it's legally allowed.
Because as a project manager, you can run, well, depending on the project, of course, but 3 to 5 projects, right? There are resource management, there are task coordination, there are budget allocation, and so on and so forth. So the project manager can handle multiple projects simultaneously. Of course, it depends on the person, it depends on the complexity of the project, it depends on the stage of the project. However, it's typically consider it like 3 to 5 being a good number. And I tend to agree that this is different for their engineering manager, as you also have to look not only on the formal status, but also on their technology progress, on their on other different aspects. Sure, also different PMs would run one-to-ones, would have different meetings with their team and team members to make sure that their mood of their team members, that their interest is in their good shape. However, I think it will be really challenging. Yeah. Indeed, it will be interesting to see.
I think so, because like for an engineering manager to be successful, they need to look after 4 P. So the first P is product. What are they building? The second P is the platform. What are they building on top of, like services that their team own and things like that? The third P is the processes. You need to have the right processes in place to allow teams to move in the right direction effectively. And the last P require a lot of thinking and mental support, which is people. So with these 4 P, it would be quite exhausting to have like 2 jobs that require you to do the same things twice.
Yeah, indeed. We had a very good conversation in details about peace and their other episode with Tiago Gysi. So I suggest listeners to go and check it out if you haven't heard it yet. With the job and job market that's currently in a very interesting state, where we hear like Facebook or Meta letting EMs go, or saying unless, we heard with Elon Musk saying like unless you produce something great as a coder, when you write lots of lines to make something work, we don't need you. So what would be your most essential and their value, or what's their core value for EM to be successful on the market today?
So for engineering managers to be successful, they need to add value to the company. And this is not just any engineering manager, this is anyone, right? They need to add value. And the way that these engineering add value is to provide enough context and support to people on the front line, which are the engineer who are required to do the work, and to provide them with support and also shield them from unnecessary noise, and know one to push someone a little bit more so that they get to the next level, but know one to provide just a bit more space to an individual so that they can really hone on their engineering, engineering or software development skills. So this is how an engineering managers provide value. And good engineering manager are super important, because I've been in teams where there's no engineering manager because their engineering manager left, or they 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 didn't have any manager to do some org changes or things like that. And the velocity of the engineering team and the motivation and the engagement was really low. So if you have an engineering manager, the engineering manager is there to look after the people. They are there to provide guidance. They are there to provide support. They are there to make the right kind of decision. If you have a bunch of people, they will all be going around like, even like simple one. What do we do next? Pick up whatever ticket, right? And they might choose whatever tech stack that they want to use, and there will be no standard, and they might also get into conflict around design decision, architectural decision, and these are very costly. And to fix all this, you only need one engineering manager, one really good one.
No, and does it worse to go in their EM role these days? Like, is there a need on the market, or how do you see it? Because you're obviously hiring globally, so you're. I think you have a feeling overview of different markets and their existence and their availability of EMs. Does it worse to change the role and go in and step into this role?
So if you are asking in terms of, is it still worth it in terms of monetary gain or the compensation, or does the market still need it? So
well, there are two aspects. First, does the market still need them? Are there positions available in your company, what you see on the market? And second is, do they still earn enough money in that position? Enough is different for different people. Let's not discuss what is enough, but kind of good compensation where you can make sure your living is backed up with the money that you earn. It depends on the country and so on, but let's first talk about their need and the availability of position, and then say like whether their compensation is on that level. If has it dropped, has it increased, or well, I doubt that it increased, but yeah, let's do step by step.
So the first part, does the market need it? Definitely, I truly believe that the market needs engineering manager, as long as they are software engineer working and producing stuff, and the role can be different, right? Like 10 years ago, there was no such thing as machine learning developer, or 20 years ago. So the technology that people are using or engineers are using may change, but we still need engineering manager, and I truly believe this. So that's the first thing. As for compensation,
Before we dive into it, do you hire as EMs at Atlassian?
yes, we do hire engineering managers. Yeah, I think a lot of companies, a lot of technology company hire engineering manager. I mean, like hiring has slowed down all over the world because of especially in the tech industry, because of the current situation. But lots of tech company needs EM, and they hire EM. As for the second part around compensation, the compensation is good enough, but I wouldn't say you can become a millionaire and retire early from engineering manager salary. But as you say, it depends on what a person needs, right? Like everyone needs different amount. And I read this book, or I listened to this podcast actually, about happiness and how much you earn contribute to happiness. Up So if you don't have any money, if you don't make any income, if you don't have food on the table, money does bring happiness. But up until certain point only. So they say it's around 70K or 100K. Once you reach that point, it doesn't matter whether you get like 2 times more or 3 times more. It has no impact on happiness.
And for which country this number? For US, Australia?
It is Australia.
Australia, okay.
And it's per year. So I'm not sure what it will be in Europe. Maybe 3 times
Yeah,
more?
so it's annual 70 or 100K per Australian dollars, right? That's a kind of amount that brings their basic happiness. And then basically it doesn't matter whether you earn 700 or 200,000, right?
That's correct. And I want to bring this up because I don't want people to take engineering management role just because they think it pays more. Engineering management is not a step up from software engineering or software developer role. If you really love technical stuff and doing hands-on and doing coding and things like that, there's actually another part, like architect role or principal engineer role. Nobody should go into engineering management just because they feel like it is the level up from their current career.
It's a different path that there are people would follow, and there in this path, what is their end goal for this path? Is it their CEO, CTO, or VP of engineering, head of engineering? Are you at the end of your path as their career grows?
So when I was young, I used to want to have my career path defined. So I used to think, is CTO the end of my path, or is CEO the end of my path? But I had been a CTO. I have also co-founded my own startup, so I had been a co-founder. I also had my consulting company, so I was a CEO. And I think for me, there's no such thing as the end part. I like to try different things, and it depends a lot more on whether I think I'm adding value to the company that I work for or things that I'm doing. It doesn't even have to be a company that I work for. Like if I'm having my own company, am I adding value to the people who I'm serving? So yeah, I think my career goals have changed quite a lot. Now I'm more focused on the impact that I can make through my role. So in my day job, as well as what kind of value that I can bring to the engineering leadership community. That's one of the key things for me. So I think I am doing podcasts because I want to connect with other engineering leaders and I want to share my knowledge and expertise, and I also want to learn from them. So yeah, that's how I think about it in terms of, is it the end of part? Because how far can you go, right? Like,
yeah, it depends. And as you said, indeed, lots of people are trying to get knowledge from others, like show me the path, right? Or show me what I can reach. But well, their goal is quite open, and everyone should define their goal for him or herself. And for some people, it might be EM is their end stop, right? And they are happy in this role. They don't want to go further. For some people, their board member would be something that they reach, and they still want to go ahead and go into VCs or whatever is there. As I understand, you had lots of conversation, and you also write about C-level. So one question that is interesting for me personally these days, and I also try to understand before, is when you talk to a C-level person, right? The person is typically, especially if it's a big enterprise, the person is quite busy. It has limited time. It has a focus on different things, and how do you approach and how do you talk to a C-level person? What do you put in the front, and how you position your goal when you talk to this person. Of course, it's not about their coffee chat, right? But about some professional thing that you want to bring and share with this person. Are there any tips and tricks that you can share?
Yeah, definitely. That's a good question. Well, there's a saying that the higher you are, the more lonely you are in your role. So that's also because these executives have very little time. So they don't have time for coffee chat, but sometimes you need to talk to them, right? And you want to talk to them because you want to pitch an idea that you have got, or you want to share like certain things. So my tips would be you need to know what they care about. Some CEO are really passionate about growing people, mentoring, or diversity and inclusion. And if you have got ideas there, or suggestion there, or feedback there, or if you want to provide help there, this is the way to talk to them. You need to understand what they care about. Or some CEO really care about making an impact in the world, sustainability. So you need to understand what they care about and go from there. And you need to be preparing yourself very well. Like right now, we are talking on this podcast and we talk quite freely. But when you talk to a CEO, you need to have your talking points and make your communication very crisp. And
So directly straight to the point, and without prior kind of story, but okay, this is what I want to share, and make sure you use effectively and efficiently the time that you have at that person. Yeah, that makes sense.
Definitely. And this is why, like, you don't want to just have a coffee chat and just sit at a cafe and just let the time go by, right? They don't have the time, and you need to respect their time as well, and you need to be intentional about what you want to talk about.
Yeah, that's true. That's a very good point, because in this position, I had the opportunity to talk with the mayor of the city, and he also has a very limited time. Like when we met, he said, like, look, I have 20 minutes, that's it. And during that 20 minutes, he received several phone calls that he had to answer, so it was even less. And there I had to go straight to the point and listen very actively and carefully what he shares with me. I would like to thank you for your time and wrap up with the last question. Did you ever regret following their engineering manager path?
Do I ever regret it? So from time to time, I do think about what it would be like to still be coding for the majority of the day. Because as I mentioned, I really love coding, right? I love creating stuff. But then I realized that I have a privilege and responsibility to be an engineering manager. And I enjoy my role as well. So I don't have any regrets, no. But that doesn't mean that my role as an engineering manager and head of engineering is all sunshine and roses. It's not at all.
No.
But my motto is life is 50-50, right? There are times when you will face challenges, setback, and there are times when you will do really well and you will feel like you have accomplished a lot. And my personal goal is to understand this and to get back up if there are challenges. Right? Every day is a new day, and you need to have the mindset that you can get through anything. So no regrets, and I am happy to be a head of engineering, but will I still be a head of engineering in 10 years? I don't know. For now, I'm happy.
Yeah, nice. Well, good luck for the future efforts, and thank you for joining and being our guest on this podcast. If people want to reach you, where do they find you?
Thanks so much for the time. It has been fun, Olax. So if people want to reach me, I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter, but it might be easier for people to search up for my name on LinkedIn, Isabel Nyo. Just type Isabel Nyo and you should be able to find me.
We'll put their links in the description or under this video, or go and follow Isabel. She tweets and posts LinkedIn posts about leadership. I really enjoyed them recently. So thank you very much. And dear listeners, if you like their podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe. More videos are coming your way. Thank you.
Thanks for your time. It has been really good.